In the late 1990s, there was this perfectly functioning commercial airplane that flew straight into a mountain.
Right, and it wasn't a mechanical issue at all.
No, not at all. It didn't crash because of bad weather or engine failure or, sudden loss of hydraulics.
Yeah,
It crashed because the co-pilot was literally just too polite to tell the captain that they were in terrible danger.
which is just, it's terrifying to even think about.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, welcome to this deep dive into the source material. We've got a truly fascinating one for you today.
We really do.
And we are partnering with the mission of the Prana Prose channel. Their whole goal is to bring you the world's most inspiring, life-changing knowledge.
Because, let's be real, your life is incredibly busy.
Exactly. You might prefer listening on the go rather than trying to find the time to, sit down and read a massive book. So we're here to pull out exactly what you need to know.
And today, we're looking really closely at Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, The Story of Success.
Such a good one.
Yeah, and we're exploring it alongside a specialized prana and prose summary. What makes this particular exploration so valuable is that we aren't just hovering in the realm of theory here.
Right, we're making it practical.
Exactly. We are going to distill the specific, actionable insights from that summary so you can actually apply these lessons to your own life.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have this deeply ingrained cultural reflex when it comes to success.
Oh, totally.
Like when we look at a billionaire or a legendary rock star or a certified genius, we tend to view them in complete isolation.
We just assume their success is, a product of raw, innate talent and sheer grit.
Right. We tell ourselves that the ones at the absolute pinnacle of their fields simply pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Because they were inherently better than everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, it is a very comforting narrative because it makes success visible and easy to categorize. But the text offers this brilliant biological analogy to just completely dismantle that idea.
The oak tree, right?
Yeah, the oak tree. So imagine you were walking through a forest and you see the single tallest oak tree. We instinctively think, wow, that tree must have grown from the hardiest, most genetically superior acorn.
Which completely ignores the whole ecology of the forest.
Precisely. It ignores the surrounding environment. That oak tree is the tallest because, well, no other trees blocked its sunlight when it was a sapling.
It had the best conditions.
Right. It grew in soil that was unusually deep and rich. No rabbit chewed through its bark when it was vulnerable. And, no lumberjack happened to clear-cut that specific patch of woods.
So today's deep dive is really about shifting our gaze away from the acorn.
Yes. We're examining the sunlight and the soil of human success.
And to find that sunlight and soil, we really have to look at the systems we built. Like, let's start with sports.
Okay, yeah.
When we look at elite athletes, we assume we are looking at pure physical merit. But the sources point to this massive, glaring anomaly in Canadian youth hockey. I know you've got the statistics on this.
Oh, I do, and they are honestly staggering.
Right.
If you look at the roster of an elite Canadian youth hockey team, say, the Medicine Hat Tigers, who play in the major junior A league.
Yeah.
An overwhelming majority of the players are born in January, February, or March.
Wait, really? It sounds like some kind of weird astrological anomaly.
I know, right?
You've got January passing the puck to February who scores on the goalie born in March.
Yeah.
Like, why would the birth month dictate hockey talent?
Well, the reason is entirely arbitrary. In Canada, the age cutoff for youth hockey leagues is January 1st.
Ah, okay.
So a child born on January 2nd could be playing in the exact same league alongside someone born in late December.
Which is a huge difference for kids.
Exactly. Think about pre-adolescence. A 9-year-old born in January has nearly 12 months of physical development over a 9-year-old born in December.
Right.
At that age, a 12-month gap represents an enormous difference in size, speed, and just overall coordination.
So the coaches look at the bigger, faster kid born in January, and they just mistake physical maturity for innate athletic brilliance.
Exactly. And because that older child is perceived as quote-unquote better, they get spotted by scouts.
They get the better opportunities.
Yeah, they get put onto the all-star team. Sociologists refer to this dynamic as the Matthew effect, named after the New Testament verse that essentially says, those who have plenty will be given more.
Right, the rich get richer.
Exactly. It is the concept of a cumulative advantage.
So it's basically like compound interest, but for human development.
That's a great way to put it.
You get a tiny biological advantage early on just by being born on the right side of a cutoff date. That gets you onto the elite team.
Yep.
And then the elite team gives you better coaching. You end up playing, what, 50 to 75 games a season instead of 20?
Exactly.
So by the time you're 14, you actually are a significantly better hockey player,
Yeah.
but only because the system relentlessly subsidized your initial arbitrary advantage.
And this happens in education, too. Kids born right after the school cutoff date are older than their peers. They perform slightly better on early aptitude tests, and so they get funneled into the gifted reading streams.
Right. And then they receive better instruction. It's just a compounding loop of opportunity.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this and looking at your own life or your kids' lives right now, and this is our first core practical takeaway from the Prana and Prose summary,
Listen up for this one.
pay very close attention to these systemic rules. Identify the cutoff dates, the arbitrary boundaries in schools or local sports. Because capitalizing on these early, seemingly minor advantages is often the hidden starting line of success.
Absolutely. Once you recognize the Matthew effect, you start to see opportunity as the primary engine of achievement. But, opportunity is merely the door.
You still have to walk through it.
Exactly.
Which brings up a major question. Okay, a cumulative advantage gets you onto the ice more often, or gets you into the gifted program. But surely, innate talent still matters at the very top, right?
Right.
Like, if I sit down and practice chess for the next 5 years, I'm still not going to beat a grandmaster. Doesn't this theory kind of ignore raw ability?
That is a crucial pushback. And the text does not argue that talent is irrelevant. What it argues is that to reach the absolute pinnacle of a complex field, talent must be paired with an extraordinary volume of preparation.
The 10,000 hours thing.
Yes.
Right.
Neurologists and psychologists have studied experts in everything from, classical music to computer programming, and they repeatedly hit this magic number, the 10,000-hour rule.
10,000 hours of practice. That is wild.
And not just any practice, but deliberate, focused practice that constantly pushes the boundaries of your current skill level. It takes roughly 10,000 hours for the human brain to assimilate all the necessary patterns to achieve true mastery.
The examples in the text are just insane. Like, we think of the Beatles as this phenomenon that just burst onto the scene with pure, innate genius.
Oh, yeah.
But before they ever had a massive hit, they were invited to play in Hamburg, Germany. And they weren't playing typical one-hour sets.
No, they were forced to play live on stage for 8 hours a night, 7 days a week.
8 hours a night. By the time they hit mainstream success, they had performed live over 1,200 times.
What's fascinating here is that no one achieves 10,000 hours alone.
Right.
You have to be incredibly lucky to find yourself in an environment that even allows you to practice that much, especially before you reach adulthood.
Bill Gates is the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
We all know him as the brilliant Harvard dropout who built Microsoft. But the text really digs into his soil, so to speak.
Oh, his background is amazing.
Yeah, in 1968, when he was just in 8th grade, his school's Mothers Club used the proceeds from a rummage sale to buy a time-sharing computer terminal for the students.
Which is wild for 1968.
Right. This was an era when computers were the size of entire rooms and cost millions of dollars. Very few universities had them, let alone junior high schools.
Gates had the immense luck of gaining access to a terminal in 1968. He was programming for 20 to 30 hours a week as a teenager.
Just nonstop.
Yeah, and when he later found a free computer at the University of Washington, he would sneak out of his house at 3 in the morning just to code.
So his environment basically subsidized his obsession.
Totally.
So if you are listening to this and you want to master a complex skill, and this is another vital piece of the Prana and Prose framework, you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself about your time.
You really do.
Are you actively carving out those hours? You have to commit to putting in your 10,000 hours without looking for shortcuts, because the data shows there is simply no bypassing the work.
But there is a catch.
Oh!
Yeah, the sources reveal that even if you accumulate the 10,000 hours, and even if you possess off-the-charts raw brain power, you are still not guaranteed a favorable outcome.
Okay, let's talk about that raw intelligence piece, because the text introduces this concept called the genius trap.
Yes, focusing on a man named Christopher Langan.
Right. To give you some context, Langan has an IQ of 1 in 95.
Which is absurdly high.
Yeah. Albert Einstein's IQ is estimated to have been around a 150. Langan was speaking at 6 months old. He could read the immensely dense philosophical text Principia Mathematica at 16.
So on paper, a 195 IQ makes him the ultimate outlier. He should be a Nobel laureate or, a world-renowned academic.
Instead, he spent much of his adult life working as a bouncer and living on a horse farm in rural Missouri.
His immense intellect was just largely unrecognized by the wider world.
How does someone with a mind like that just slip through the cracks?
Well, to understand why, the text contrasts Langdon with Robert Oppenheimer, the famous theoretical physicist who directed the Manhattan Project.
Oh, Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer was also a genius. But during his time in university, he went through a severe emotional crisis and actually tried to poison his tutor with chemicals from the laboratory.
Wait, he tried to murder his tutor?
Yes,
That should be the end of his academic career right there. Prison, expulsion, all of it.
it absolutely should have been, but he didn't get expelled. He was placed on probation. Oppenheimer managed to talk his way out of an attempted murder charge with university authorities.
That is wild.
And later in life, despite having zero administrative background, he convinced the United States military to put him in charge of the entire atomic bomb project.
So Oppenheimer possessed something Christopher Langdon completely lacked.
Exactly. Practical intelligence.
Practical intelligence.
Yeah.
Knowing exactly what to say, to whom, and precisely when to say it for maximum effect.
Reading the room.
Right. Knowing how to navigate social dynamics to just get what you want.
Yes. And this is the critical distinction. Analytical intelligence, your raw IQ, is largely genetic. But practical intelligence is learned behavior.
You absorb it from your environment.
Exactly. Specifically your family.
But Oppenheimer grew up in a wealthy household. The text explains that families in that socioeconomic bracket often practice a parenting style called concerted cultivation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, concerted cultivation is about actively fostering a child's talents and opinions. Wealthier parents intervene on behalf of their children.
They teach them to speak up.
Yeah, they teach them to look adults in the eye, to challenge authority figures like doctors or teachers, and to view institutions as highly malleable systems that can be negotiated with.
Whereas Christopher Langdon grew up in deep poverty. His environment was characterized by what sociologists call natural growth.
Right.
Parents in poverty are often exhausted and intimidated by authority. They teach their children to be submissive, to keep their heads down, and to accept the rules as rigid and absolute.
Which has huge consequences.
Huge. When Langdon was in college, his mother missed a financial aid deadline, and he just lost his scholarship. Later, when his car broke down, he couldn't convince his professors to let him move his classes to the afternoon so he could hitchhike.
He just didn't know how to advocate for himself.
No, he didn't know how to navigate the system, so he simply gave up and dropped out.
He had the analytical mind to comprehend the universe, but he lacked the social savvy to convince a college administrator to switch his schedule. It's just a tragic squandering of potential.
It really is. And for the parents listening, this highlights another crucial Prana and Prose practical takeaway. You have to actively guide your children's interactions with the world.
Absolutely.
Teach them to ask questions fearlessly. Role play with them so they know how to converse with adults with confidence and really advocate for their rights. You are literally equipping them with the practical intelligence required to unlock their potential.
That's such a good point. We've talked a lot about the family environment, but we also have to examine the broader historical era you were born into. Your demographic luck.
Okay, let's look at the story of Joe Flom. He became one of the most successful, powerful lawyers in New York City. He was a named partner at the massive firm Skadden Arps.
Yeah.
But if you looked at his background in the 1940s, it read like a list of insurmountable disadvantages. He was the child of poor Jewish immigrants. He didn't have the quote-unquote right social pedigree. When he graduated from law school, the prestigious old-money corporate law firms flat out refused to hire him.
But those immense disadvantages were actually perfectly disguised advantages, dictated entirely by the timing of his birth.
How so?
Well, first, Flom was born during the Great Depression. Because birth rates plummeted during that time, he was part of a demographic trough.
Meaning he had way less competition for everything.
Exactly. Smaller class sizes in the New York public schools, less competition for university spots, and less competition when entering the job market.
That makes a ton of sense.
And because the elite corporate firms wouldn't hire him to do their clean, prestigious legal work like, handling taxes or drafting wills, he and his small firm had to take the messy work that was left over.
Right. In the 1950s and 60s, that meant corporate litigation and proxy fights. Hostile takeovers?
Because the elite firms thought hostile takeovers were beneath them, they considered it ungentlemanly.
Ungentlemanly, yeah. But fast forward to the 1970s and 80s. The financial markets change,
Hmm.
regulations shift, and suddenly hostile takeovers become the biggest, most lucrative business on Wall Street.
Everyone needed someone who could fight.
Exactly. Every major corporation needs a lawyer who knows how to handle a proxy fight, and who are the only lawyers in the world with 10,000 hours of deliberate practice in this highly specific, aggressive type of law.
Joe Flom and his partners.
They practically held a monopoly on the exact skill the world suddenly desperately needed.
But it wasn't just timing either. The text argues that Flom inherited a profound work ethic from his parents, who worked in the garment industry.
Right, the garment industry.
And this wasn't just miserable, backbreaking labor. It was a masterclass in what the sources call meaningful work.
How does making aprons translate to meaningful work?
Well, the garment industry in New York was highly entrepreneurial. If you were making aprons, you had to source the fabric, cut the patterns, stitch the garments, and sell them yourself.
Ah, I see.
The text breaks meaningful work down into three distinct elements. First, autonomy. You have control over your decisions. Second, complexity. It engages your mind and requires problem solving.
And the third?
Third is a direct connection between effort and reward. The harder you work, the more aprons you sell, the more money you make.
When you have those three elements, hard labor isn't just a crushing burden. It actually becomes a source of fulfillment.
Exactly. Joe Flom watched his parents use their minds and relentless effort to literally shape their reality.
So when it comes to your own life, and this is a powerful prana and prose exercise to reflect on, evaluate your career path through these three pillars.
Yes.
Seek out work that is meaningful, because if your job lacks autonomy, complexity, or a clear effort to reward link, you will burn out.
You just will.
But if you have them, you can sustain the energy needed to truly excel.
We've zoomed out from the family to the historical era. Now we really have to zoom out even further to the broad strokes of centuries-old culture.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We started this deep dive talking about a perfectly good airplane flying into a mountain.
Yeah, the Avianca Flight 052 crash and the Korean Air crashes in the late 90s. The black box transcripts reveal something truly chilling.
They reveal the dark side of cultural legacy.
They do. Sociologists use a metric called the Power Distance Index, or PDI. It basically measures how much a specific culture values, respects, and fears authority.
Okay.
In cultures with a high power distance index, there is a rigid vertical hierarchy. A subordinate does not bluntly correct a superior, even if their life depends on it.
And the psychological toll of that hierarchy in a cockpit is just terrifying. Like in the Avianca crash, the plane was literally running out of fuel.
The co-pilot knew this.
He knew. But because of his cultural conditioning, he couldn't bring himself to directly demand that the air traffic controllers clear them for an immediate emergency landing. He used what linguists call mitigated speech.
Right. Mitigated speech is an attempt to downplay or, sugarcoat the meaning of what is being said.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, "We have no fuel, clear us to land immediately," he said something along the lines of, "We are running a little low on fuel."
And the air traffic controllers were operating in a low PDI American culture.
Yeah.
They assumed that if it was a real emergency, the pilot would just say so outright.
Yeah.
They didn't pick up on the mitigated hints.
And in the Korean air crash, the co-pilot couldn't bluntly tell the captain that he was flying them into a mountain. He just passively mentioned the weather radar, hoping the captain would take the hint.
So how did they eventually fix it?
Well, Korean Air brought in outside experts who recognized this massive cultural blind spot. They forced the flight crews to communicate entirely in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, by switching to a language that was free of their native hierarchical nuances and by rigorously training them in direct communication protocols, they bypassed their cultural legacy entirely.
That is incredible. They transformed from having an abysmal safety record to being one of the safest airlines in the world.
They really did. That completely flips the script on how we view failure. But cultural legacy can also build incredible success.
Let's talk about math tests and rice paddies.
Let's do it.
We often see data showing that students from Asian countries consistently outperform Western students in mathematics. The text argues this isn't about innate genetic math ability at all. It comes down to linguistics and agriculture.
Let's look at the mechanics of the language first. The Western number system is highly irregular and honestly pretty clunky. We say 11, 12, 13, 20.
It's just rote memorization.
Exactly. But the Chinese number system is perfectly logical. You say 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 2 tens.
Which makes so much more sense.
And furthermore, human short-term memory stores numbers in a roughly 2-second auditory loop. Because English numbers are long and take longer to pronounce, an English speaker might only hold 7 digits in that loop.
But because Chinese numbers are so brief-like, they can be spoken in a fraction of a second. A student can hold 10 or 12 digits in their head at once.
Exactly. When you are a child trying to learn complex algebra, not having to constantly drop and pick up numbers in your short-term memory reduces frustration immensely. The language itself makes math inherently less daunting.
And then there's the agricultural legacy. Western agriculture is traditionally based on a cycle of intense work during planting and harvest, followed by long periods of rest or hibernation in the winter.
Right. But farming a rice paddy in southern China is an entirely different beast.
It's not just throwing seeds in the ground and waiting.
Far from it. A rice paddy requires absolute precision. You have to build complex irrigation systems to control the water levels perfectly. You have to nurture seedlings, weed by hand, manage a hard clay pan beneath the mud. I mean, it is complex, backbreaking labor that requires constant attention 360 days a year.
It is the ultimate historical example of meaningful work. You have autonomy, complexity, and a direct reward. If you work harder, the paddy yields more rice.
Exactly. This centuries-old culture deeply ingrains the belief that persistence directly correlates to success.
So when a Western student encounters an incredibly difficult algebra problem, their cultural conditioning might whisper, well, if I can't figure this out in 2 minutes, I'm just not a math person.
Right. But a student backed by the cultural legacy of the rice paddy will sit there for 20 minutes, patiently trying different angles until they finally crack it.
Which leads us to the final Prana and Prose practical application. There is this Chinese proverb mentioned in the text. No one who can rise before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich.
It's all about that grime.
Exactly. No matter what your background is, you can consciously cultivate that habit of tireless persistence. Success isn't a magical gift, it's a grind.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? If we put all these pieces together, the myth of the self-made outlier really just shatters. Success is a massive, invisible web.
A total web.
It is the hidden advantage of a January birth date, the pure luck of finding a timeshare computer in 1968, the practical intelligence taught by your parents at the dinner table, the demographic timing of the Great Depression, and the centuries-old legacy of rice farming or mitigated speech.
The outliers are not truly outliers. They are the beneficiaries of a highly specific ecology. And when we finally realize that, it changes how we view our own achievements, and honestly, more importantly, it changes how we design the systems that shape the next generation.
Speaking of shaping the future, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the mechanics of success, make sure to engage with the Prana and Prose mission. Like this audio, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and most importantly, drop a comment with the name of the book you want us to summarize next.
And this raises an important question, something we really want you to mull over as you go about your day. The text briefly notes that Denmark has a national educational policy where they intentionally do not separate children by ability until the age of 10.
Really? Until 10?
Yeah. They deliberately wait, allowing physical and emotional maturity to even out before they start tracking students into gifted or average streams.
Think about your own life or the lives of the people around you. What if your entire trajectory, the math stream you were placed in, the labels you absorbed, your entire concept of what you were capable of, was fundamentally altered just because some systemic rule judged your talent when you were merely chronologically younger than the kid sitting next to you?
How much breathtaking human potential is society squandering simply because we refuse to acknowledge the hidden, compounding role of timing?
We are so obsessed with looking for that glowing core of pure,